Willkommen, meine Damen und Herren, bei unserem heutigen GAINER-Talk. Mein Name ist Martin Schwarz. Ich bin hier bei den Wöginger Industriemedien für die digitalen Medien zuständig. Worüber wir heute sprechen wollen, steht unter dem bezeichnenden Titel Chance und Chuzpe. Heute nämlich wollen wir bei diesem Talk, den wir gemeinsam mit Tech House, Architects of Digital Transformation veranstalten, über die Startup-Nation Israel und vor allem über die Chancen sprechen, die dieses einzigartige Ökosystem auch österreichischen Unternehmen bietet. Wir wollen das aber zuerst ein bisschen illustrieren mit ein paar erstaunlichen Zahlen, damit Sie einen kleinen Eindruck bekommen von den wirtschaftlichen Dimensionen und dazu zuerst einmal ein kleines Einführungsvideo. Ja, ich hoffe, Sie haben jetzt ein bisschen einen Eindruck bekommen, welche Rolle tatsächlich Israel als Startup Nation spielt. Wir werden jetzt sprachlich auf Englisch wechseln, weil wir auch eine Mitdiskutantin aus Jerusalem zugeschaltet haben. Und damit die sozusagen diesen Talk auch vollständig mitkriegt, werden wir jetzt mit Englisch fortfahren. Dan Senor, author of Startup Nation, once said about the startup ecosystem Israel, "It is a story not just of talent, but of tenacity, of questioning of authority, of informality combined with unique attitude toward failure, teamwork, mission, risk, and creativity." Today we want to talk about what makes up this nimbus of Israel as a startup nation, but not only that. We would also like to talk with our experts about what expectations Austrian companies may have of Israeli startups, which they certainly should not have, and what could make it interesting for Israeli startups to cooperate with Austrian companies. Unfortunately, we are not in Tel Aviv, and we are not in Jerusalem, but in dark and cold Vienna, but we are very happy to have an expert from Jerusalem with us today. With this, I would like to introduce today's panel. Eveline Steinberger is CEO of the Blueminds company, and she says Blueminds started its business in Israel. It's this specific spirit there, an environment which tells you you can achieve everything, just try and go for it. Helmut Wöginger is Vice President Mergers and Acquisitions at Andritz Ventures, and he says Israeli high-tech entrepreneurs radiate a tremendous dynamism and technical competence that is second to none. There's flexibility, but sometimes too little structure and plan. The entrepreneurship there is lived by mostly young techies, most of whom have an IDF background. And last but not least, Julia Kagan. She is principal at Jerusalem Venture Partners, a company with a total of 9 funds investing in startups in the areas of enterprise software, cybersecurity, media, and artificial intelligence, joined us today from Jerusalem. Prior to that, Julia was business development manager at another company, and she worked for 6 years in a special unit for cybersecurity at the IDF, the Israeli army. Good evening. Last but not least, some housekeeping. This is not supposed to be a frontal teaching event today, so we would like you to join the discussion at any time and ask your questions. You can do this via the F&A button on the screen. I will then read your contributions here, and one more request, please ask your questions in English if possible. First of all, Helmut Wöginger. Together with two ex-IDF officers, you have founded Otorio, a company providing cybersecurity products. So why did you decide to partner with ex-soldiers, with Israeli experts? And which of your expectations in this cooperation were confirmed? And what actually surprised you?
Yeah, we made several trips to Israel. One with, or the first one with Eveline. And this was really a very good experience. And coincidentally, we met some good friends of these officers. And we wanted to take advantage of the very broad and knowledgeable expert scene of ex-Israel defense guys, because we are really of the opinion that it's important that we not only offer leading systems to our customers, but also services which make these plants cyber secure. And this is the reason we teamed with the best guys which we could find in Tel Aviv and set up this joint venture. And according to our opinion, it's a very big success. So we have exceeded our business plans, and we hope that after the crisis is over, we can continue to exceed what we have assumed to do. And this is really a great partnership with more than 50 people employed in this company, which has its main site in Tel Aviv. We also employ 1 or 2 persons here in Austria, and are very satisfied with this partnership.
And what did surprise you during that partnership, during the months and years you're doing that now?
So I think it has been set up 2.5 years ago. The first year they stayed very silent because they developed everything in stealth mode. And then they showed us first basically the new appearance of the product and what we can offer. And I was surprised really that they could compile a great team of people, although the manpower is very competitive in Tel Aviv, and the salaries are skyrocketing. Julia can sing you a song from this for sure, Eveline as well. So it's very, very difficult to get a normal salary structure. But as we gave the core employees employee stock options, by which they also participate on the future growth of the company, so it was possible to attract very good talents at feasible salaries. So we exchange on a regular basis. We invite them to present their products within the group, which is very important that they market themselves, and we help them to get to our customers then on behalf of us. We also realized that we need to have local guys here who represent. Although Israel is only 1 hour difference, normally it's nevertheless very important when you want to target mid-sized company that you also speak German, and that you be able to travel there quite quickly. And these were the learnings which we did and now set up.
Mm-hmm. Julia, what do you think about Helmut's earlier assessment that you find a lot of flexibility, but sometimes maybe a lack of structure and plan in Israeli startups? And what does that mean for an investor like you?
Sure. So I think it's a statement about the Israeli ecosystem, and I'm 95% agree with this statement. Israeli entrepreneurs are very agile, and they adapt very fast, which is a great attitude to have, specifically in the times of crisis, like you have right now. So this is, I believe, the advantage of the Israeli entrepreneurs. Their lack of ability to plan, it is true, but I must say that we see this changing because the Israeli ecosystem is maturing as well. And when we see second-time entrepreneurs, and when we see guys and girls who spend few years in the US or in Europe, work for corporates, and then coming back to Israel, they bring more skills and a little bit of a different culture into the ecosystem. So in general, I would say that this statement is correct, but we see some shift and some changes within the type and skill set of the entrepreneurs that we see. What it means for us is, as an investor, first is to let them be who they are and to encourage their strengths, specifically the agility and their ability to adapt, which we think is very strong, and we want to encourage that. When we do help them is specifically when the company scale, I would say above 50 employees, when they need to build a real structure, to build a structure in the US or in Europe, usually this is the point where they need some help with organizing it and building it in the right way. And this is where we help them a lot.
Eveline Steinberger, you have been active with the Blueminds company for quite a time in Israel, and particularly in energy markets. What do you think Austrian companies have to offer Israeli startups? We heard Julia who said, well, they need help when in organizing their expansion to Europe or wherever. And then I also would be interested to know how you have experienced the run of European companies on the Israeli startup scene. Is there a run, or is it just a hype? And how long will it take?
Sure. Before answering your question or questions, let me tell you that I actually started my business in Israel, in Tel Aviv. Before I worked for several companies in several management positions, among them Verbund, Siemens, or the Austrian Energy and Climate Fund from the Austrian federal government. And then I decided to change sides, and I decided to do that and start that in Israel. And so Blueminds, back then Blueminds Israel was born. Today it's the Startup-F site, an energy management software company with an AI energy platform. And what's important for Austrian companies to be active in Israel? Of course, we can offer a lot, and as Julia and also Helmut already said, there is the industrial background. I think this is something we can bring in. And besides that, of course, the access to capital and the access to clients, to the European market. But I think what's also very relevant is to ask why Israeli startups for Austrian companies. And this is fascinating, and this was also in my case. I fell in love with the innovation ecosystem and was fascinated by the entrepreneurial spirit. And there are many differences between the Austrian ecosystem and the Israeli ecosystem. First of all, there is this density of startups. You mentioned that already and described it in your video. But it's not only this, that there are so many startups active and start every year. we call Israel the startup nation, it's also that there are a lot of multinational companies with their R&D centers. And this means a very lively ecosystem, and it's even possible for startups already to connect to these multinational companies in Israel. And this is of course, I think, a big success factor for startups in Israel. A second issue is, of course, the governmental support. We here in Europe have also support for tech companies and startups, but in Israel, I think it's something different. Recently, I heard from the finance minister of Israel that he is sharing the opinion that the Israeli startup scene, the tech companies, will pull out Israel from the economic crisis due to the coronavirus pandemic. And I think this is fascinating. If you would ask a member here in Austria from the government, I doubt that they would have this focus on the tech scene, on the startup scene. So it's this real priority and this importance of the startup scene. And finally, of course, I think we will further discuss that. There is the military service. No other country has the possibility, the option to bring their young people, men and women, to the military service and train them to top experts in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, analytics, big data. And thus the military service is also a kind of incubator for startup companies. And I think this is very, very difficult to copy. So for Austrian companies, I think it's the best they can do to partner with Israeli startups from both perspectives, to collaborate with them in their own businesses, to bring their tech into their value chains, but also to invest in these startup companies. And your second question was, is there a rush on Israeli startups? I don't see that. Unfortunately, I don't see that, at least not in Austria. Of course, it's becoming better, but it is still the case that we have more to attract these startups to them. So it's the other way around, actually. And we finally tried to close this gap and transformed it into a business model. This is what TechHouse started, to build the bridge between agile, innovative startup teams and the traditional companies here in Austria and in the DACH region, acting as an architecture of digital transformation. And this is, at least this is what I see, very important to have a partner, an inroad into this Israeli ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. So we have talked about the IDF a lot. So Helmut, you're active in the field of cybersecurity, and you founded your company together with two ex-IDF soldiers. And Eveline talked about the source of innovation the IDF actually is. So what do you think, which role does it play, and why isn't that possible in European countries in your opinion?
Yeah, the Israel system has, as we have in Austria, compulsory service. But the big difference is that it's, I think, 3 years for men and at least 2 years for women. And after this period, a lot of people continue in different roles in the Israel Defense Force. And especially if they are permitted to join elite forces, they make very good friends and are part of a very small elite group of people. And so they establish a very good network within the army. I'm sure Julia can confirm this and can add to this, because she was for 6 years or so in the army. And if you are that long together with colleagues, and this is a limited number of, then you know them very well, and you also get a very good hands-on training. When you are already still very young, you get a lot of responsibilities. And one of the two founders was a 31 or 32 years old major when he joined us. So he had an elite training of, I think, 12 or 13 years in the army, and he could really do a lot what no one has in Austria the possibility to, because it's not developing so fast. We don't have this very high standards as the Israelis have in the army, as we are not that endangered by enemies in the near borders. And so this has also been the gain from development programs of the Israeli government, which has been invested for more than 20 or 25 years in building up this high-tech scene and promoting it with very good subsidy programs, that people who quit the army then immediately are invited to join startups, to found something themselves. And so they have a great education there, they have a good network, and this is what investors are looking for when they then join with academia and try to develop business models that you actually can sell it, bring in contacts from earlier companies, where you get good leads, international customers, and so on. So this is then the best basis after successful POCs, that you get a good funding, and then you are halfway through, that you achieved something quite quickly, and people whom you know, or you at least know the friend of the friend, and then you're introduced, and then you get help and get the network. And this is a great system, which we don't have that much. You also have a network, but here the army in Israel helps very much.
So in the Israeli army, soldiers are divided in two mindsets basically. So Rosh Katan, which is meant like little head, someone who doesn't want to take responsibility, and Rosh Gadol, which is the opposite. And I think Julia is more like Rosh Gadol. So I would like to ask her. The IDF and also universities like Technion, they are source for innovators. So what is the most crucial mindset people are taking with them when leaving the army or the university, and which mindset does help when they are starting a business?
Sure. So yes, I hope that I have the big head and the small head. I think so. First, it's a combination, right, of different things that create this Israeli entrepreneur. And Helmut actually mentioned a lot of these capabilities and skill set. But I think that one of the most unique and important is that we have this belief, like real belief, that everything is possible. There is no problem that is not solvable. And sometimes is a little bit maybe ignorant, or I don't know how to say it, but many people in the IDF who serve in this elite unit have this belief in themselves that every problem they can solve every problem, no matter how hard it is, how complex it is, how many people are involved. You can solve everything, and everything is possible. And you need to have this mindset, because sometimes in this elite unit, you need to solve problems that no one solved before. So you're not doing things that someone did before. You're entrepreneur in your own field. So I think that this mindset and this belief is crucial to the success of the entrepreneurs, specifically in the technology-related or deep tech-related companies. And when you combine it with the teamwork and the teamwork, the responsibility that we get at the very early age, I think this combination is what makes the Israeli entrepreneurs unique.
We do have a question from one of our viewers who asked, on one hand, we can't copy the Silicon Valley mindset. On the other hand, on the other side, we cannot copy the IDF connected approach from Israel. So what can we do in Europe? Eveline and Helmut, maybe that's a question for you.
So maybe I start, Helmut. I think, of course, we cannot fully copy these systems, but what we can do is to take out the best of it and try to bring some of these important ingredients into our ecosystem. So it's not only the military service. I mentioned that already. I fully believe this cannot repeat it in Austria. But what we can do is to form these ecosystems and bring different stakeholders together, start to partner with each other, learn more from each other. And this should also guarantee to create this entrepreneurial spirit. This is it what Julia just described. So in the army, they get trained to solve a problem never solved before. This makes something with people. They have to be very independently, and if they are successful, they can be proud of, and it is a kind of mentality. If you solve a problem, then another one can come, and this is it. Even if you fail from time to time, always try it again, not doing the same mistake again, but yeah, this is this belief in ourselves, and it is also this risk taking, and here we can learn a lot, and also families can learn a lot and discuss it with their children and copy something for our education systems.
Helmut?
Yeah, so I think also here in Austria and in Germany, we have great startups and great entrepreneurs. We don't want to forget this. We don't have this broad ecosystem of financing, which is available in Israel and the Silicon Valley. So if you have a good idea, basically, and stand up, you also get a very high valuation when a venture fund wants to invest. In Austria, the valuations are much lower and much more attractive for an investor. But as I said, we have great universities. We also have good networks, and slowly the funding willingness is also understood by the government, and some programs have been initiated already back from the early administration. in Austria, and I think this was a good impetus, and we now have to see that this local scene for a startup and for exchange in the ecosystem with investors, strategic companies, and founders should be improved and increased, and also somehow subsidized by the government and incentivized. And when we manage to establish such structures, then I'm really sure that this will also become much better than it is now.
Mm-hmm. Eveline, Israel hardly offers a home market for tech companies or for tech startups. Of course, it's too little, simply. So that's the reason why they also want to work with companies in Europe or the US. So what's in your opinion, how do you feel that this is the right startup to invest in? What should it bring with it that you will invest and cooperate with it? And what is on the other side expected from foreign investors when they want to cooperate with an Israeli startup?
So, good question. First of all, it doesn't make a difference if we as investors look at an Israeli startup or a startup somewhere else. So at the end, they need to have a good business solution to solve a problem which exists. So this is very important, because without solving a problem, probably you won't find clients for the business model. Second thing is, of course, beside the technological skills, we have an eye on the team. So this entrepreneurial spirit, I say it again, is most important. How the team is able to fulfill this problem or this challenge. And when these two things are given, and there is also a willingness on the other side to partner with us, we invest very early stage. So in an early phase in startups, we try to bring in our industrial focus. Then a collaboration is given and we are interested. What I like when I'm in Israel is the thing that the founders always start their business to think it also globally. So Israel is a small market in terms of consumers, 8.5 million inhabitants. So comparable to Austria, it is necessary to think the business model globally. And this is what we also like. A startup, and it's in its definition, means to have a business model which can be scaled up. If you think it from the beginning, this is a big advantage, because most of the startups fail when they try to scale up and enter into new markets. And here's the collaboration given. We think that we have a broad network in Europe, and this is where we find each other. We can open doors to new clients. We can initiate proof of concepts at the beginning to learn more about the business ideas, the teams, and if it works, we go on with them. So it's both. It's the industrial background we bring in, and all other companies from Europe can bring in. And it's this access to a real market. The go-to-market approach can be supported by companies from the DACH region. Maybe one last comment. I think Europe has not only or should not only have the task or the aim to copy Silicon Valley or the Israeli startup ecosystem. We have a very strong industry. Think about the Mittelstand, think about the competences in the industry 4.0 area. And what is important, I think, is to develop this further. And why beginning from scratch again, bring in tech where tech is needed, integrate it into the value chains of the existing businesses. And I think this is our chance here in Europe, in Austria, in Germany, in Switzerland, to partner with these new tech companies and bring the best from both worlds.
Maybe a question for Helmut, because Andritz is a very big company and industrial provider of several industrial solutions. So what did you learn during your time cooperating with Israeli experts for your company? So is there something like Eveline said that you could integrate in your culture, in your structure?
So always when we have been traveling to Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or Herzliya, I was joined by several colleagues of mine from the IT department, by automation, by several business functions, even guys from Brazil, where we have a good software developing company. So they all have experienced and saw pitches of Israeli startups, which is very impressive because they are extremely well coached by investors like GVP or others, I don't know. They really ask you how much do you have time. You want a pitch for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes. They have everything prepared, and they really then end after, if you say 10 minutes and then 10 minutes Q&A, they really end after 10 minutes and said everything what they wanted to say within this time, and then they are really precise and know exactly that the other colleague is already waiting outside and move and let the other one step in. So, and apart from these organizational things, the content, probably in 80% of the startups which have pitched to us, is really very unique and special. And it's surprising how Israelis can develop these things, although especially in machinery, there are little machinery companies in Israel, but it's this international focus which is necessary when you want to offer something. As Eveline already said, you need to really sell 99% outside of Israel, otherwise you don't survive. And so there is a well network established with the US, with Europe, and also with Asia, like China. And so nevertheless, we really were impressed which great solutions and also benefit Israeli startup could offer us, and certain products we have taken into our offering as well and developed them further, and also want to continue doing this in the future. And therefore, I really invite everyone to go once to Tel Aviv and to listen to one of the tech talks which are offered in startup centers for free. So there is no need to be on an official tour, but it's really a great experience to see how this is organized.
We do have another question from one of our viewers to Julia in that case. So the question is, in which industries and technologies do you see currently the biggest potential in Israel? And maybe connected with that, you know, we are hearing about the enormous density of startups, so in proportion to the inhabitants, and we hear a lot of success stories, but we rarely hear about failures. So what's in your opinion the reason for failures of startups, especially in Israel? And is there also a point where you think that regarding the density that there will be a cleanup of startups? So first of all, where's the highest potential, and second, the failures?
Sure. So in terms of areas, I believe that cybersecurity will remain one of the strongest areas for Israel, and this is well rooted to the IDF service and also to the very strong ecosystem that we have here from entrepreneurs, R&D centers, from all the multinationals who open here offices with the focus on cybersecurity after they acquired Israeli startups. So I believe that cybersecurity is a very strong domain and will remain one of the leading verticals for Israel. The second area is the combination, and this is where we focus at JVP, is taking the very strong technologists here in Israel, the data scientists with the knowledge of AI, deep learning, machine learning, computer vision, and applying all this knowledge into specific verticals. So solving the greatest problems in digital health, in Industry 4.0, in wellness, in mobility, and others. So the combination, and this is where we need a little bit to guide the Israeli entrepreneurs, because they develop very strong technologies, but they're usually looking for use cases. And we guide them to solve specific problems within specific verticals. So I believe this intersects, and we already have some major wins there, right? So Mobileye is a great example of this combination of AI, computer vision, and mobility, right? So it's one of the best known Israeli companies. And we also have some very interesting portfolio companies who apply computer vision into solving health problems, wellness problems, insurance, fintech challenges, and so on. So I think these are the two major areas, so cyber and AI that is applicable to specific verticals. As to your second question, why startups fail, so statistically, and this is correct to all around the world, and it's very interesting, the number one reason for failure of startups is no market need. So people spend all their energy, investors' money, and their time solving problems that just don't exist. And this is true for Israel, this is true for Europe, US, and all around the world, which is very interesting that it's unite us all. I think in Israel, it's perhaps a little bit stronger because, as Helmut and Eveline mentioned, we're a small country and we are far from our customers and we are far from the market, which is usually the US as the first market for Israeli companies. And I think Helmut just briefly mentioned that the company that he's working with, they spent 1 year in stealth mode developing the solution. And this is very true to all Israeli startups. They spend sometimes a year, 2 or 3, developing the best technology, but they don't talk to customers, they don't talk to the market. And I believe that this is the number one reason for startups failure. Very strong technology, but just they don't meet the need, and they don't talk to customers early enough to make sure that they're building a product that someone really needs and will pay for that, right? It's not only about the cool technology. So I would say this is the reason for failure.
Eveline, maybe when collaborations between Israeli companies and Austrian companies don't work, Does this also have to do sometimes with different expectations? Do you see a different structure of expectation management between Israeli startups and Austrian companies? Maybe Israeli startups want to be faster. Maybe for them they think it's easier to do market research or whatever. So are there differences in expectations?
I agree with you. Of course, it's also a clash of culture. If a traditional company starts to work with an agile team, and speed means all, and often it's not the priority within an organization to fulfill the timetable, the roadmap, and this can produce some conflicts. But at the end, what I also see, there is a development, and there is in each and every company, also here in Austria, doesn't matter in which sector, there is a need for DEC and for the digital transformation process and what they learn from each other. And there is, of course, also an exchange among the industrial players here, that with a startup involved and with the right team and participants, it can work out. And of course, here again, which problem has to be solved, and is this problem really something which clients also see that it should be solved? And at the end, often problems can be solved by a wonderful new DEC idea, but nobody is willing to pay for it. So all these things has to go together, and often startups are too early, or companies also here are familiar with this kind of experiences. So it's not so easy to say. The only thing at the end is try it, go there, be part of the ecosystem, try to involve, as Helmut already said. It's so important to get this feeling. You cannot do it at home at your desk. And often for a company here, for a multinational company or a small company, they don't want to spend so much money to open an office there or even an R&D center there. Then there is the possibility, and this is what we offer, to work with partners who translate between the two cultures, between the two worlds, and try to bring the two ends together, like the houses do.
Helmut, who knows more, the Austrian investor or the Austrian company about the Israeli startup scene, or the Israeli startup about the European market?
I think a lot of investors or even big companies know very little about the Israeli startup scene. So it's very often the case that Israelis who have the need to sell their products internationally and who love to travel also know very well their markets and that they are much better. But it becomes more and more that also Israeli startups may present themselves here in Europe at certain conferences. And so this gets more and more well known, which hidden treasures you find in Israel. So for example, the Association of German Machinery, they also now on a regular basis organize trips and webinars on Israel. The Austrian Trade Association, Wirtschaftskammer, they also host several webinars. And I think by doing this, it gets more and more well known.
Okay, we also want to be as precise and timely as Israeli startups, as we heard from Helmut. So for the last round of questions, it's a question for all of you. What's your ultimate advice on how to really take advantage of the opportunities offered by Israeli startups and Israel, and what particular cliche should we forget about the startup ecosystem? Because, of course, not only because of the book, the Startup Nation by Dan Senor, there's a lot of many cliches are floating around, and sometimes it's like a miracle. But what should we forget? Julia?
Sure. So I would say that the cliche that I would like to break is that Israelis don't know how to build large companies. I think there is this saying that Israel, because they're so agile and they're very strong at technology, they're building great technologies and they sell their company very fast. And this is true statistically. But I think that if you look at the vector, at the more of what changed through the last 20 years, this ecosystem is maturing, and Israelis are building large and larger companies from year to year. So, and we have example from JVP portfolio. We have CyberArk, who is the largest cybersecurity company, together with Checkpoint, who are leaders at the globally, and you have a list of large Israeli companies. So I think this saying of Israelis that don't know how to build large businesses and sell fast is no longer correct.
Okay, Eveline.
Yeah, first of all, I would recommend that everybody should get involved, should get connected and dive into this ecosystem. You cannot only read about it, you have to try it and you have to do it. And when it comes to cliches, I like some of these cliches, I have to admit. Of course, we discussed it also already. Israeli startups are very convinced of themselves and I would say beyond all measure. But I like this attitude because it's not the easiest area to be involved in. It's a good character to survive in this kind of shark pool. So yeah. I like these cliches. Even what Julia just described, that Israeli startups are not able to become large companies. Maybe they are very eager to make money out of it, and others do then the rest of the work. The example of Mobileye was already brought, so all okay for me.
Helmut.
Yes, so I can also underline that our managers are very proud of themselves, and what's important here, that you establish an ambassador within the company who helps them to get to the right people which they need to actually do sales. So it doesn't only help if you invite them to present in front of a group and so on, and then do project work. It's a really long and monthly process that you always remember our divisional managers that they need to include in their pitches, that we also offer these cybersecurities, which can be an add-on product serviced by our partner. And So this is an advice which I would like to give. And for sure, there are certain cliches, but this is also the same with us Austrians. There are also cliches, and I think we have to adapt to an international getting along. And when you are open to other cultures and cliches, then you manage and take out the best for yourself.
Okay, Eveline, Julia, Helmut, thanks a lot for your contribution today. Next time we can hopefully gather not just in front of a screen pretending to be Tel Aviv, but really in Tel Aviv. And thanks for the discussion. It was very interesting for me. Meine Damen und Herren, vielen Dank für Ihre Anwesenheit. Ich hoffe, es hat Sie interessiert. Und ich freue mich, wenn wir uns bald wieder zu einem GAINER Talk begrüßen können. Vielen Dank.